Hi guys, Togo here with a new video, and this video will be the ultimate solo shuffle tier list video for patch 11.0.5 of the War Within, or more precisely the mid-season patch. The 0.0.7 patch will come out 3 weeks from now, I think, 4 weeks from now, probably. I don't know, maybe in 2 months, we don't know. But I think it's time to finally put the nail into the coffin for this patch. I'm going to be very blunt. I think I'll be making a lot of enemies, but it is what it is. I just want to be very truthful about it. And there is a lot of things that we can discuss that is really like mind-blowing. I already made a meta-analysis video yesterday, so let's start right away with the meat and potatoes of this video. So we have S, A, B, C, and D tier. S tier is meta, like really meta. A tier is like they're good specs, very good specs. Very good specs is probably the A tier for me. B tier means that it is good to average or very situational. C tier means that it is really underpowered. It actually needs help. And D tier means that it is completely garbage and it needs more than help. It needs a straight up rework or whatever. B tier is like they don't need to per se buff it, but it's like it benefits from nerfs from other specs. Okay, let's talk about that. Or they get buffs from like other sources. I'm gonna start right away with the healer meta. I think that's the easiest way to go for. It's also like a good way to start a video. So I'm going to talk about immediately the healers, and then I'm going to talk about class per class. Okay, so let's start right away with a hot take. Most likely, I think there is like a clear top 3, and then there is like a bottom, like not bottom, but like average healer tier, where obviously it is really about the comp and the social lobby, where you're going to have like some good counters and you can win games, but it's like very situational again. Then you have like the worst healer. I think I'm going to put for the first time, I think, in all tier lists that I did for the War Within, my very first D tier healer spec. I already discussed it in the meta-analysis video. I think Holy Priest is literally playing hard mode, like really hard mode, like game plus, like new game plus kind of game in the War Within PvP. Like I'm talking about purely like specifically solo shuffle. Yes, there is a world where Holy Priest in 2s is okay because of the CC that it gets and you have some okay damage. But in solo shuffle is really tough. They don't have any damage reduction. They don't have anything to go by. Like you can play Oracle, which is fine, but it's like you're playing a worse Disc Priest. And if you're playing Archon, it is just not enough. You get like infusions of like not infusions of light, but you get like the infusions, like the infusion procs where you get like those instant flash of light, which flash heals, which it doesn't heal for much. I think the cost abilities, which is something you're spamming as a Holy Priest, just doesn't heal enough to warrant the spamming of the healing. Like it's really just to reset those serenities, and your Prayer of Mending doesn't heal too much either. Your Renew is literally laughable. Like I don't know what they did to Renew, but Renew is literally like it's pad of pad healing. Like literally you don't you do Renew just because you're like a Holy Priest and you're like in habit of doing it, but it heals for nothing. Your Lightwell heals for nothing is also quite terrible because you want your allies to be low HP to get benefits from Lightwell. So it's already backwards healing whenever you're healing Holy Priest because you're either over healing or you're healing nothing because he's already dead. And that's something you don't really want as a healer, like to constantly have to wait for someone to drop to 10 or 20% to be able to do a big Serenity, or like to finally pop your biggest city, like Guardian Spirit, I think Guardian Spirit, not Guardian Angel, which at the end just makes your DPS go dead or pop a CD while you're popping a CD. So in social fall it's already very bad. But I don't know what they did to Holy Priest. I don't know what they could do to help. And that's why it's for me a D tier spec. It needs a straight up rework for PvP. If it's like through PvP talents, through like crazy modifiers or whatnot. let's talk about now the average tier, where I think it straight up doesn't really exist a C tier in my opinion. But if I have to put a C tier, because I have to, like I said, I already said that in the community post, I'm going to make enemies out of this tier list. But I do feel like Resto Shaman is the worst of the three middle specs. Now it doesn't mean that it is straight up like uncarryable or you cannot like climb as a Resto Shaman, because like I said, those three specs that I'm going to showcase after the Resto Shaman. So you have Resto Shaman, then you have another one and then another one. Resto Shaman has like great lobbies as well. If you're playing like versus like a caster lobby, your wind shear, your grounding totem are like invaluable compared to, let's say, a holy paladin where you don't have anything. You also have range CC, while a holy paladin needs to cross the whole map to be able to Hajj you, for example, or to Repentance. He has to cast, which obviously with a grounding totem or a wind shear or your hex can be doing way better. And the Holy Paladin, if he repentance a DPS, you can just dispel it, while Hex is something very situational. Not everyone has a D-curse, and Holy Paladins cannot have that. So that's a situation where, yes, as a Resto Shaman, you have a great possibility to climb or to win a lobby, but it doesn't happen that often. That's why it's C tier. It is underpowered. Like their casted abilities are not that great. Your damage is frankly just lower than in Dragonflight because you don't even have Stormkeeper anymore. Something that was able to make you win games is just not there anymore. I think also it is kind of undertuned. Riptide doesn't do anything. It feels like it does nothing. Maybe it's like it needs to scale with the seasons because mastery is such a big thing. But it feels like you're already hitting the mastery levels of Dragonflight Season 4. So it's really weird what they want to do with Resto Shaman. And that's why for me it is underpowered. It needs great tuning. I think the toad maybe healing tide. I don't know what they could do. It's very hard for me to judge Resto Shaman because it's a very utility based healing spec, and it could be over like whenever they're like buffing to Resto Shaman, it could be overshooting it. But I think it's better to overshoot it right now than nerf like the top tiers, and that's already something I discussed in the meta analysis video. I'm going to reiterate once we are like on the top tiers. Now the second worst top three, like middle three specs is the Resto Druid, and in my opinion, it's on the same tier as the other one, which is Resto Druid. I think Resto Druid is maybe a bit more situational as well. Like I said, those three specs are very situational, where Resto Druid sometimes needs to overheal a lot, and then at one point they don't have any healing. That is true, but you have one of the best CCs in the game, which is, I'm going to cut Paladin so I can do the video, which is frankly Cyclone. If you're doing very correctly, you could Cyclone the DPS every single time to avoid to heal that much. But you need to be very good. I think Resto Druid is like one of, if not the hardest spec to play as a healer in Soul Shuffle. You could say Holy Priest because it is the worst. So obviously it is also hard to win. But I think mechanically, knowing how to press, know how to play, knowing the matchups and whatnot, I think Resto Druid is one of the hardest, if not the hardest in my opinion. And that would maybe explain why you don't see a lot of Resto Druids running around compared to Dragonflight, because in Dragonflight it was actually very good, to the point where you don't need to play and learn how to Cyclone effectively. But right now, Cyclone is actually a very big thing for Resto Druid. In Dragonflight, you actively didn't press Cyclone because there was an occasion to get kicked on, and it was better to just straight up PvE heal. Right now, if you PvE heal, you're going to be set back, especially if you like playing versus Preservation Evoker, which is the other spec I'm going to talk about. You're going to fall behind ultimately. So for me right now, B tier, I think it's a correct tier for Resto Druid. Some people may say it's maybe too high, but I want you guys to remember. I think Resto Druid, if you're playing in the right lobbies and you're playing very aggressively and you know how to play, because again it's a very hard spec, you could actually like perform way better than Resto Shaman or Holy Priest. That's my opinion. Now the other spec, which is in the three amigos spec, which is Preservation Evoker, Resto Druid, and Resto Shaman, I think Preservation Evoker is also a very situational spec. It is a lot less stronger than what it was a few weeks because it got nerfed, and also the meta has shifted enough to make them miserable to play. Because let's face it, a multi-caster lobby just is a pain to heal as a preservation evoker, because you see them kite every single time you heal. You need to max range, it's very hard, and often you're getting into the face of the casters, which makes you a very easy healer to CC throughout the rounds, for example. Now the thing is with Preservation Evoker is it actually counters a lot of specs and can actually do very well as well. Now it's again lobby dependent. If the lobby is doing very well for you, you could actually win versus any other of the meta tier specs. But you have also some very terrible lobbies. Out of my head, BM Hunter SP with a Warlock and let's say 4 Science and Handsome Shaman. I don't know. It could be worse, but I'm going to say that. That lobby is very terrible for Preservation Evoker to heal, because if you want to heal as Enhancement Shaman, you need to be on his face, because he's going to chase down every single caster, which in turn will make you get CC'd. If you want to heal a caster, he's going to run away from the Enhancement Shaman, or he's going to try to line the other casters every single time, which makes you actually very vulnerable to CC, very vulnerable to get like switched on, and I think it's also a very easy spec to like eliminate as a caster lobby. I think that lobby would be making you feel like you're on the Holy Priest level of like healing. But again, I think Preservation Evoker does very well with Resto Druid. In general, I feel like you're doing pretty versus a Shaman, because obviously your sleep doesn't do too much versus a Tremor and a Grounding Totem and a Wind Shear. But again, those melees that you crave, which are making you deal a lot of damage because you're like on their face, but also you're dealing a good CC, amount of CC, and you can help the melees survive a lot better with, for example, a caster. So let's say the meta is Devastation Evoker, Warrior, Unholy, KDH. You can actually make everyone's like very strong, because you can make them like kite way better than before, or you can make them reach their target way easier. That is something you don't have right now. I think you just don't play those lobbies. So right now, B tier. Again, it's a long-winded video. Grab some popcorn. I don't know. It's going to be a long video, but hopefully you do understand the reasoning I'm going to give you, because this is going to be an ultimate tier list, so it's going to be a long tier list regardless. Now we are like on the top, like the top 3, the creme de la creme, the best healers ever in the War Within right now, and I think that is also the reason why I find the healing meta actually more interesting than the DPS meta right now, because I feel like every single spec is very tight-knit, but it actually needs help to be like the best meta ever. It just needs a few things to make it way better. So in my opinion, there is like a top 3 which is interchangeable depending on the lobbies, and I'm going to be true with what I think. Mistweaver, S tier. Disc Priest, S tier. Holy Paladin, S tier. There is no A tier, and I'm going to make my reasoning very clear. I would say that some lobbies you will feel like Mistweaver is like less interesting than Holy Paladin, so it will feel A tier. But there are lobbies, like for example full caster lobby with a Holy Paladin, they're going to feel very A tier, while the Mistweaver is actually going to do very well in those lobbies. You have like double aura mastery if you want to. You don't even need to play Crackling Jade Lightning, so you don't need to be scared of CC or whatever. You could just play Rushing Wind and actually do single target Rushing Wind, which is doing 1 million per hit and could crit around 1.5 million. I play it, it's very strong, very fun, and it's very dynamic as well. And it's 20 yards, so you don't need to commit too hard. And you have a lot of lobbies where, for example, there is like a enhancement shot or arms where you could just farm those Rushing Winds. And some lobbies where Disc Priest is just making them dwarf, like dwarf in power levels, right? So that's why I feel like those 3 are interchangeable. And you can say that this is a way for me to run out of the room and say like, I don't care, those 3 are the best. I don't want to like wet myself on that subject. But I do really feel like this. Whenever I'm playing my Holy Paladin, it feels like it's the best healer ever. If I'm playing on my Disc Priest, it feels like it's super good and it's the best healer ever. If I'm playing on my Mistweaver, it feels like I'm godly on it. Like it feels so fun to play as well. It does so much damage and it actually heals for a lot. So my opinion is currently since I have played every single spec, right now, like healer specs, like I played it recently as well. I truly think this is the meta for healers. So if you, I hope you do understand it. I hope you do follow this. So now the healer section is gone. Now let's talk about the DPS section. And this is going to be very interesting because I'm going to change the tier list out of a sudden. You're going to say, but don't worry, we had S tier for the first time ever. There is no S plus, no A plus, whatever. Dudes, I don't care. And you can fight me on it. It will not change. God tier needs immediate nerfs. This is the tier that really needs nerfs right now. And to be fair, I could even put a tier above that, but I'm not going to do that. Okay? I'm going to talk directly and cut it dry. I think there is no there is no real thriller about it. Like, it is BM Hunter. BM Hunter needs immediate nerfs. Immediate. It is disgusting to play against, disgusting to play with, disgusting to see in every single lobby, in every single elo. If you're like 1.4k, or if you are 1.8k, if you are 2.1k or 2.4k, if you are like a rank 1, or if you are like the noobiest of noobs, BM Hunter feels drastically problematic in the War Within. And I'm not even saying that you need to nerf BM Hunter on a class or spec level. No, you need to nerf it on a hero talent level. This is just crazy. I want to show you guys, I'm going to take my sweet time to show you guys a bit of knowledge about how the BM Hunter works, because I mained BM Hunter until I saw everyone run it. And I felt like I don't want to be in the 25% popularity contest. I don't want to do that. So BM Hunter, what is annoying about Dark Ranger? Black Arrow does a shit ton of damage because of also this. Hunter Spray gives 50% increased damage pretty much, because you always have like like 3 or 4 pets actives. This is crazy. You have 2 pets at all times anyways. So you have 20%. And then you have obviously your Dire Beast, which is 3%, like 3. So you have 30%. Then you have the occasional Hati or Fenrir. You have the occasional Dire Beast from Shadowhounds. You have the occasional Dire Beast that you get from your kill commands. So you get 50% at all times anyways. Your Black Arrows crits and hits for 1 million on a BM Hunter. Funny thing is, it actually does way less damage on MM, while you have a mastery specifically giving you more damage on your focused abilities. So, I don't know what they did. I don't care. They need to nerf Dark Ranger. That's why I'm saying don't nerf BM Hunter on a spec level, because obviously you don't want to make Pack Leader even worse than they actually are. Nobody right now is playing Pack Leader in PvP. If you do play Pack Leader, it means that you're like unaware of Dark Ranger, or you're straight up a Shadow hater. Basically, you don't want to play with Shadow damage or whatever, or you're just trying to be a hipster. Pack Leader is significantly worse, and you're going to perform less. Why? Because on a defensive level, Den Recovery is not as good as your Smokescreen. Smokescreen makes you have a defensive every single time you're going to press a defensive. You're getting an extra defensive. You get also your pets healed every single time you're going to press a defensive as well. So your pets are like nearly unkillable as well. If they are smart, they have like their man pet, and even then they have like their acceleration, whatever. And it is not kickable anymore. So it doesn't even matter if you're killing the pet, because it gets rezzed anyways very quickly. Then you have obviously the amount of utility behind Dark Ranger. You have your Dark Chains or your Shadow Dagger. You have your Bleak Powder, which is still doing a lot of damage even after the nerfs. You have Withering Fire, which is literally making you a machine gun on your Black Arrows, which is already hitting for a lot. So you are also on a timer. Every 3 minutes, you know you're going to die as a BM, like versus a BM Hunter. And that's being very, very like optimistic. You're going to get 4 Bishop Rafts way sooner. and I mean 3 costs, so it's not even 4, it's 3. Then you have obviously your death blows being resetted very, very often, so you get even more black arrows. And then you have your even boss bowstring, which is giving you even more death blows. All of these, and also your Murder of Crows is just hurting too much, because you obviously you have it on your spec tree, but you also have it on your Dark Ranger tree. So now you see the whole problem of this. It is not a spec problem, it's a whole hero talent problem. And I don't know what they need to do. They made it super cool. That's cool. I like Dark Ranger being flashy. I like to be feeling like a Dark Ranger, but it is not. This is not okay. It does too much damage. It gives too much extra damage for hero talent compared to other specs. I want to remind you guys, Outlaw has 2 hero talents which are like not that flavorful and not that interesting. You have literally boomies which are also not that flavorful and not interesting. If you want to go even further beyond, Survival Hunter has Pack Leader, which is really sad, and then you have Sentinel, which is already very sad. Then you have Arcane Mages, which have like 2 hero talents which are like garbage. Then you have like here Havoc Demon Hunter, which is like just a whole spec that is not functional. This is not okay that BM Hunter has it. I'm okay for it to be A tier, to be B tier, to even be S tier. But right now it is like beyond the S tier, because it has like a hero talent which is like overperforming normal specs. Like the hero talent itself could be a spec. That's how good it is. Okay? So this round is over. BM Hunter, it is in the god tier. I hope people do understand that. And I showed you like even reasons why it is very strong. And also the million pets you get for free, and the bugs with like the big pet that you have as well at the moment. Like there is too many things that is going wrong on BM, so it actually needs help right now. Help BM hunters being nerfed as well, because I don't know, if I'm playing a spec and I see like 2 per lobby, and like even in solo queue RPGs, or even like just in general, if you're doing 2s or 3s, you see a lot of BMs. You see also in social a lot of BMs. You're seeing like clones of yourself every single time. Is it fun to have that? Personally, I don't have fun with whenever I see like a lot of clones. So right now, just get it. Dark Ranger, don't get the spec. I think the spec is fine on Pack Leader. I think it's fair. It's just still BM Hunter. Like, let's be real, but it's still a lot more fair than what we have with Dark Ranger, because Killshot is not literally doing 1 million damage on a spec that has no mastery affecting the, like Black Arrow. It's crazy. Anyways, with that being said, Hunter, it is C tier. Yes, I said it. It is finally C tier on my tier list. I think it is like crazily bad right now. It is bugged. That is a problem. It is shadow nerfed. It is just not okay. And for a spec that should be like screaming of joy because of like Dark Ranger being good, well, right now Dark Ranger and the whole spec is just like shadow nerfed or bugged, one or the other. So maybe it's because mastery is not affecting like Black Arrow. Maybe there is something wrong with MM, and with that being said, also the meta is not doing well for them, and it should actually be doing well. Like you have SPs, which is a very, very immobile spec, which cannot stop your damage. Affliction Warlocks, which cannot stop your damage. You're also playing versus BM Hunters, which obviously it's a way hard like lobby for you, but still it's okay. And you don't face a lot of like the really hard counters to Hunters, for example. So like for example, rogues, they are MIA right now. You only see assassination rogues here and outlaw rogues. You see the people that try to mimic Waz and Peekaboo or whatever that is playing outlaw rogue, which obviously don't have the same success rate as the rank ones, which is normal because it's a very hard spec and very situational as well, and you need to know how to play with it to actually be performing on it. So I think right now, it's C tier, even whenever the meta is actually playing well for them. So there is a problem there. Let's talk about Survival Hunter really quickly. I think it's actually a okay, great spec. I still think for me it's A tier. It's still very hard to rate a Survival Hunter because obviously most hunters are playing BM Hunter because that's the occasion to get 2.4k at the moment. Like if you really want to get 2.4k and you're like a 2.1k player or whatever, and you really want to get 2.4k, just play BM and you're going to reach it eventually, especially if they don't nerf it. But Survival Hunter is like going the hard way. I think the hero tons Sentinel is probably still the play. If I'm not mistaken, please do correct me. But I think Sentinel is probably the one that is going to give you the most free damage out there. Butchery is now cool, so you have a big dot as well, so that's okay. Survivability is okay, but it's nowhere near BM Hunter because they have smoke screen, they don't. But I think you can do well on Survival Hunter enough to be like very, very viable, very good. I don't think they could buff Survival Hunter. What they need to do is maybe change pack leader to be more interesting. And I think right now Survival Hunter, where they are, is actually in a balanced state. And I think all specs kind of need to be leaning onto A tier if you want to have a balanced game, which is never going to happen because all games are like this in PvP. But trying to reach that balanced state is what is balance, like the work of balancing in a game for devs. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room as well, and I don't care. And like I said, I could make another tier above S tier to have separation as well. But I think Shadow Priest is also quite dumb, guys. I don't care. I made a video yesterday about like meta analysis purely on like numbers. I don't care. It is truly telling how good it is. I don't care if like the people are going to say that it's a hard spec to play or hard to survive or has no mobility. That's a design problem. But balancing problem, numbers problem, right now Shadow Priest doesn't have no problem with that. You have great CC, you have survivability, you have great cities. I think again, void swap being unaffected by the like dampening is still kind of dumb because we are like in a time where literally Disc Priest and Shadow Priest are the most popular specs with BM Hunter. So you're going to like inevitably face someone that is really good at life like void swapping, which makes them very hard to kill already. And it's also very hard to let them be how they are because they are going to be free casting, and free casting Shadow Priest is something you don't want to face. But it does insane damage for what it is, and yes, it is kickable. But guys, being kicked doesn't mean that you're going to lose the game. People that realize that are fake casting, and they are very good at fake casting, they're also very good at letting them be kicked to do other stuff. For example, getting kicked on Void Torrent is not a problem because you have also you have Mind Flay Insanity, which is another school. So you could get kicked on Shadow School and still do your Mind Flay Insanity school. And you have also a lot of instants. I think people don't like understand how much damage it actually does, but Catharsis actually does a lot of damage. Although it's like kind of Thorns damage because you need to take damage to deal that damage, but it is still there. And you also have Devouring Plague, which is also hurting. You have your Vampiric Touch, which can crit for 1 million because of the Misery talent. So, and right now Voidweaver is doing very well. So I don't know why people complain about Shadow Priest or why they do say like it's weak. I think it's the biggest gaslighting you can actually get on the War Within, saying that Shadow Priest sucks, because that is not the case. And I don't care how you can feel about it, and I don't care how you play with it. Numbers are telling you otherwise. It is too strong. Now, is it as strong as BM Hunter? No, but like I said, I could make it very like ridiculous and put another tier below BM, but I don't want to do that, right? So already, like, if you want to have the explanation, please watch the video. But BM Hunter is obviously like above anyone else. But if I want to say like nerfs to Shadow Priest, it should be nerfed, guys. I don't know what they need to nerf to make it not garbage tier, but in my opinion, with the amount of CC they have, with the amount of damage they have, with the amount of utility they have, with the amount of healing they have, with the amount of survivability they have, I think it's too overloaded right now. And it just shows with the numbers. Like, for a hard spec to play, it is crazily easy to play right now. What else? What can we talk about? Let's talk about... I want to switch up. Let's talk about my main, Enhancement Shaman. I think Enhancement Shaman is a great A tier. Some people may say maybe S tier. I think it is not S tier, but it is really close to S tier though. I think the meta just plays very well for them, except for BM Hunter, except for Feral Druids, which can just eat Enhancement Shamans alive. But I think a custom meta kind of helps Enhancement Shaman deal some good damage. And yes, you can play Storm build, or you can play like the Elementalist build, kinda, which I think Big Dam and Soul are playing, which I am playing like the Storm build, and I'm doing fine with it. But obviously, if you're playing Elementalist, it's better versus like those casters because you have less uptime, but your damage is really high because of that. And you can perform. I think that the thing about Enhancement Shaman is it is very versatile at changing builds without changing like your stats, so that's actually good. Um, I think Enhancement Shaman has like a 2 minute go, so you have Ascendance, and then 2 minutes later you have like the deadliest Ascendance ever. And that 2 minute mark is like a time bomb for the enemy team to know, okay, now I need to trade, and the next go, the next 2 minutes is going to be very interesting. I have to trade again, so I have to keep a CD somehow, some way to survive the second Ascendance. If you do survive the second Ascendance with the Storm build, then you're going to be good to go. Now with the Elementalist build, you don't have that, so you need to be smart about it. Sometimes they don't play with Ascendance, so you need to play around that as well. I could make a video about how to counter Enhancement Shaman, but I'm shooting myself in the foot pretty much. But you can counter Enhancement Shaman pretty reliably. I think they just are doing well right now, and it actually needs no buffs anymore. I think they could maybe. I don't want to nerf Enhancement Shaman because again, if the meta the meta could switch with a nerf to BM and a nerf to SP and Warlocks, for example, and that could swap the whole meta into a more physical damage dealing one, and then Enhancement Shaman is not doing well in Soul Shuffle. But right now, I think with the healer meta, with the caster meta and ranged meta in general, I think Enhancement Shaman is actually doing well. And then you have Elemental Shaman, which I think is on the same level as Enhancement Shaman. I think Elemental Shaman is very strong. I think people kind of know how to play right now. I think Haze build was always the most reliable one anyways. Mastery build is cool until you don't one-shot, and it is what it is. But now Haste is king, in my opinion. I already made a guide about it. Um, it cannot be S tier whenever you have like feral druids and BM hunters, and they are like literally like dog walking elemental shamans. But outside of that, I think elemental shaman can actually do and have great lobbies. You have like again playing versus a holy paladin, you can swap on a holy paladin very easily and like destroy them. You have a go every 30 seconds. You need to play around your goes and survive until then, and you could actually like again score kills. You have your Earth Shock still hurting for a lot, like a crit for 2 million. You could like spam them as well if you get like aftershocks, which again it's RNG, but it is part of being a shaman, I guess. If you have ascendance, you can literally delete someone, and if they're not aware, they're going to die. You're also very good versus mages, for example. I think right now Elemental Shaman is in a good spot. It doesn't need buffs anymore. Maybe a Lightning Bolt buff, but then you need to take away a bit of Lava Burst damage, so you could have like a bit of a variety in your builds. Because right now, if you don't play Lava Burst build, I don't know what you're doing, pretty much. That's how I feel. Or like Earthshock build. I would like to see Lightning Bolt be a bit more interesting, but again, Stormkeeper is so much of a non-factor. You actually do Stormkeeper to get the Elemental, and then you get some okay damage and good generation towards your Maelstrom, but the damage is not that impressive compared to what you could have in the past. But yeah, I think the shamans are eating good, except for the healing spec, which is not always the like it never was like this. I think elemental shaman was always okay and great in Dragonflight because of like the lava build, which is literally not costing anything. But in the World Within, where you're costing a bit more, you're still okay. But resto shaman is like in a different level of bad right now, but not as bad as Holy Priest. Um, let's talk about a big spec where I think I do rant a lot. Like I do rant a lot about that spec, and I don't like to play against it if I'm playing melee. But I think Devastation Evoker is now officially, for the first time in the War Within, B tier on my tier list. I think the meta just doesn't suit them at all. They want to play versus melees. They want to be very unkiteable. But what are you going to kite versus specs that have longer ranges than you, that want to kite you? So in that situation, you are the one getting kited. That's something Devastation Workers don't like. Getting kited by casters. So right now, Devastation Worker is B tier because obviously it is average to good because it has occasional great lobbies. Like if you have like a warrior feral druid havoc demon hunter lobby, you're actually good with all three specs, so you can have a great partner every single time, and you can kite every single spec to like obliteration literally. So I think that's why I'm putting it B tier. I think if meaties were not popular at all, like right now meaties are still okay popularity wise because you see a lot of people playing it still, but they don't get high rated with it. You see a lot more classes being high rated with it, less popularity on it. So it's kind of crazy, but it just makes Devastation Evoker a bit less interesting. It didn't get nerfed since a long time ago, but the worse the meta gets, especially like PM Hunters, Shadow Priest, Warlocks, even Frost Mages, even Feral Druids to a certain extent, they are all good versus Devastation Evokers. And again, I say Feral Druids, they also are good with Devastation Evokers, so those lobbies are quite good. But like, they suffer greatly by how the meta is shaping. So I don't say buff Devastation Evokers, but this is like a point of like if like the S tiers are getting nerfed, the God tiers are getting nerfed, you will see automatically Devastation Evoker jump from tiers. So that's why sometimes you don't need to buff a spec to make them better. It just is like how the meta is shaping out. Augmentation Evoker, I'm going to put them at D tier. I don't see them. They don't seem strong as well in Social Shuffle. I think it's highly dependent on healer on the DPS spec to be good, or your healing spec to be good. I frankly say it needs a rework, and that's kind of how D tier works. Anyways, that's how I say. It's very hard for me to put them higher because right now it just is not good. So yeah, D tier. Let's talk about Unholy DK and Frost DK. I think Unholy DK is now B tier in my opinion. It's really like it is lobby dependent, but let's be real. If you're facing a BM hunter and you're facing like let's say a feral druid, and now Armsword and Fury Warriors become way more popular, they just destroy you because you're so squishy. But also, you have then casters which are like unkillable these days, and they don't really care about you slowing them because they just stand still. I'm talking about SPs. Or you're playing versus like healers which are fine with you being in the lobby. For example, mistweavers with the rushing windkick, which heals for a ton with a lot of pets. You have holy paladins which can dispel diseases, so you already do no damage, but you will deal a lot less damage as well. And disc priest actually healing well with a DK in the team. So I think in general the meta is shaping well, and enhancement shamans actually do well if you're playing storm build versus unholy DK. You can actually deal a lot of damage onto them. So I think the squishiness plus also the fact that you also are not dealing as much damage as in like before. The nerfs to death coil were really too harsh. And they didn't compensate with wounds, so you could not really say, look, I don't care about death coil, I'm going to play around my festering wounds. This is not what's happening. So I don't know if it's like a meta thing or they need to be buffed. I think it is partly like both, but I don't think you need to buff it right now. You could maybe buff like the certain parts that are like not utilized by the unholy DKs. So maybe the pets, although it's really hard to play against, or festering wounds, or score strike, or like those clawing shadows. You need to buff that maybe, but it's kind of hard. I think it kind of needs a rework as well in PvP, but I don't know. There is something there that doesn't tell me like Unholy DK is doing well right now. And then Frost DK, to be fair, it's going to be D tier. The meta doesn't play well for them as well. Like you could say casters are like okay for Frost DK, but it's actually not. It's very hard to group 3 casters onto your damage, which is like the one thing that is making healers scared, is by like getting a triple blind into a triple stun into a strangulate on the healer and then swap on the healer and destroy them. That is not really happening in those lobbies, and the meta specs physical ones, like for example BM hunters, I would say to a certain extent Fury Warriors, although is it like it is meta, but I don't know, feral druids, like those specs are actually doing well versus Frost DK, and you can get disarmed by a warrior, or if you're like facing an outlaw rogue for some reason, because again, some people do play that these days now, or windwalker. Just get like a very hard lobby where it's very hard to win. I think it just lacks a lot of damage. They got nerfed multiple times in a row because of PvE. I don't know what they did to PvP Frost Decay dev. I don't know if it exists, but like I think this was literally just like hating on the PvE spec and say like, look, PvP needs to suffer as well. That's how I feel. So Frost Decay D tier. Let's talk about Windwalker. I think Windwalker is probably one of the better specs right now. I don't know. Do I want to put them at S tier? I think I'm going to put them at high A tier. But the reason for that is I don't think the meta is doing well for Windwalker. But if the meta kind of like stops, like for example, if BM Hunter stops with actually being BM Hunter, I think at that point Windwalker could be way stronger. And if you like you're playing versus the arms warriors and like more physical ones where your Fist of Fury actually parries a lot of the stuff, you could actually be like unkillable to them as well. You're already very hard to kill, but I think the meta kind of makes you not being S tier. Now there is a world where I do see them S tier in my books. If I had to put an A plus, they would be A plus, but I'm going to not do that for this tier list. But yeah, for me, A tier, I think it's quite fair. It just does a lot of damage. I think a lot of people are complaining about the playstyle of Windwalker, while I think a lot of people kind of asked for it. They wanted to play more without hide and seeking. Now you don't hide and you don't hide at all, and you actually seek the enemy at all times, and people don't like it anymore. So it's a you think you do, but you don't situation, I think. Yes, Blackout Kick does more damage than Rising Sun Kick overall, which is kind of weird. But you cannot have everything. If Rising Sun Kick is doing too much damage, you need to nerf Blackout Kicks, which is your consistent damage. So you need to decide, do you want to have more consistent damage or do you want to have one-shot burst, which in turns makes you like hitting like a wet noodle on other occasions, like on Tiger Palm or Blackout Kicks. So I don't know. It's very hard. Let's talk about Feral Druid. I think Feral Druid is a easy, needs immediate nerfs. I think the issue is they're not on the same level as BM. I already said that. But I still think Feral Druids, they deal too much stupid damage, which is very hard to avoid. And yes, Holy Paladins, Preservation Evokers, they kind of stop the damage of a Feral Druid, but the bleeds are not really that dependent of Incarnation. So you could just reapply the bleeds and it will still be good. I think the bleed buffs were too much. I think they were still fine even without the nerfs, without the buffs. Now, thinking about it, it's the same situation of BM Hunter where you don't want to nerf Feral Druid too hard because then you're going to nerf also the hero taunt. I'm going to show you as well. The problem is Waldstalker gives you too much extra damage out of nothing. I think the bleed as well is doing crazy damage. And it also gives you a lot of like defensives on Waldstalkers as well. So what I suggest is that they nerf Waldstalker, so Druid of the Claw is still playable, because if you nerf the class, like excuse me, the spec, you're going to inevitably make Druid of the Claw really, really bad to the point where you don't play that. I want people to be able to choose between those two. Not that you have to play Waldstalker because you want to compensate the nerfs. So nerf Waldstalker, not to the point where it's unusable, but to the point where you have to choose between Druid of the Claw and Waldstalker, and it will make it a lot easier to win the games, I think. To enjoy the game and also like not get crazily problematic gameplay. Affliction Warlock S tier. Yeah, I think after like carefully thinking about it, normally it would be 8+, like I said, but I'm going to put them ahead of Windwalker. It's A plus in my books. It is really close to S tier. The reason why I'm not putting it S tier, although I do feel like it's S tier, is that they are less tanky. Uh, they are less tanky than Shadow Priest. They are dealing kind of the same damage. They actually deal a lot of damage, but they are getting destroyed by BM hunters, destroyed by feral druids. I think you are destroyed by fury warriors as well and arms warriors as well. Um, I think that's partly why I do feel like it's A tier, but I think yeah, I think I'm going to put them at S tier anyways, because I think the damage is really carrying you by a lot. It still has a lot of free damage. You have to cast, but you don't have to cast as well, because if you're doing a haunt, you get like a nightfall proc. So if you really want to do shadow balls in a row, you could actually do that. Your dust applications are super easy. You can just play single UA because who cares? You, you can still win the game pretty reliably as well. So I think it's S tier. I do feel like it's below the 3 healers. It's very annoying to play versus affliction warlocks these days, but since BM Hunter is that strong, it does keep them in check. And since unholy DKs and other specs are not that popular, affliction warlocks can actually win games pretty reliably as well. Demonology Warlock, I think it's a bit lower, so I'm going to put them at A tier. It is very strong. It has MS effect. It has crazy damage, which is very hard to stop actually if they know what they do. And Soul Half is so good. Like I think Shadow Bolt doing that much damage, or Demon Bolts doing that much damage, I think is making the spec way more viable than you think. I've made a guide about Demonology Warlock, so if you want to check that out, please do check that out. I do feel like they're very close to S tier, but the reason is that I'm not putting at S tier is that I do think there is a difference between Affliction Warlock and Demonology Warlock. I think if the Affliction Warlock has way more unhealable damage that you cannot really recognize, while Demonology Warlock, if you know Shadowhound and Dreadstalkers are coming, and you know that there is a Tyrant, that's the moment where you're going to like try to stop the damage or try to use a defensive. But affliction warlocks, they get haunts every 15 seconds or 20 seconds, I don't remember. So you already know like nightfalls are going to be proccing and you're going to deal a lot of damage every 15 to 20 seconds. Your soul rot is a big go as well. So I don't know. I think that's why I put the difference. Destruction Warlock, on the other hand, I think it is currently a low B tier. I already discussed it on the meta-analysis video. I think right now it doesn't do too well. I think it's because of the meta, to be fair. Like, this is situational, but the meta as well. If the meta was a bit less about BM Hunter, Feral Druids, Fury Warriors, and Affliction Warlocks, whatever, it's really tough for Destruction Warlocks to actually like live and to survive and to exist. Whatever, Affliction Warlocks has like big nukes in their shadow balls, while your chaos bolt cannot do the same kind of damage, or like a bit more, but not that much. And you play like Wither, which to be fair, I always thought it would be more about affliction warlocks Wither, but like Destruction Warlock plays around Wither anyways. It's kind of weird how it plays out. So right now, B tier, I think Incinerate does no damage. I think Conflags do no damage. It's always all about Chaos Bolt and Shadowburn, which just results into gameplay that is not really sustainable if you want to climb reliably. You can still climb and win games because of like your double havoc into chaos balls, into mortal coil, into like a sphere, and you can win the games because of this. But it's still hard because like you have maps where literally you are like really at your mercy. You cannot do too much. Fury Warriors, I'm going to be quick on that. It's A tier. I think it's above arms. I'm going to put that like this. The meta suits more Fury. I think Slayer actually deals way more damage than Slayer arms. Mobility wise, it does feel like arms than Fury is a bit better, but it's just like a bit. It's just kind of the same as arms. Blaze-storm actually hurts a lot compared to arms as well, so it's very, very weird, but it is what it is. And I do feel like if the top meta specs are getting nerfed. They are next in line to getting back into S tier. But right now I'm going to put them at A tier. Arms Warrior, I think I'm going to put them at B plus or A minus. So for now I'm going to put them at A minus. I think it's not that strong. You have still lobbies that are terrible for you. Like any caster lobby is actually a terrible lobby for arms, especially if you're playing like versus very intelligent casters and very intelligent healers. You know you're going to be the target no matter what. You're very squishy. Your damage is okay. I think demolish is so good to like noob stomp people, but people that do know that, look, if you're not into a stun, you can just walk away from demolish and not getting hit, and it goes in CD. So Arms Warrior is interesting, strong, depending on the lobby. It is very strong if it gets like the S tiers and the God tiers nerfed. But you have lobbies where if you have a Holy Paladin versus you, you know double bop is going to come. If you're playing versus a mistweaver, he can actually farm rushing wind kicks on you very easily as well, and they can disarm you as well. Disc Priest is maybe the only healer where you can say, it's okay to play against, but they are unkillable, so that go is also not going to happen. Shadow Priest is usually a good target for you, but they are somewhat tanky these days. BM Hunter is actually doing too much damage for you. Feral Druid is very annoying to deal with, and any rogue spec is going to be very annoying for you anyways. So right now, I think it's low A tier. We're very close to the end of the tier list, but again, like I said, it was going to be a very long one. Fire Mage is going to be... do I want to put them at E tier? I'm going to put them at C tier. Same for Arcane. I think they are very niche. But the truth is, you can win lobbies. I think the issue is that the Giga specs, the Giga very strong specs, which are BM Hunter and Shadow Priest, for example, with a Feral Druid, they just eat you alive. They are really annoying for you. You cannot really CC them as well. Yes, you can Nova the pets, but if they're smart, they can freedom it. So, and you can even mend pets with the magic dispel and could also dispel the Nova as well. So right now, I do feel like they are both very, very weak. I think Arcane Mage is more of a niche spec. If you're like very, very strong with it, you could feel like a make it A tier. But I think it's ridiculous to say that Arcane Mage is A tier for everyone. You need to account the tier list not on the top 0.01%. You want to be like account people that are like duelists or rival twos or like glads, but not like the rank ones. And I think if you're like thinking about rank ones, like if you're thinking about Raikou or whatever, they're playing Fire Mage, they're going to make it, Arcane Mage, they're going to make it feel very strong and very disgusting to play against, but it is not like the tail for everyone. And I think Arcane Mages is nowhere near that level, and the same for Fire Mage. Frost Mage, on the other hand, I think is reliably A tier. I think the lobby kind of the meta kind of plays against and for you. I think if you're like playing versus double warrior, for example, which is not it's not unnatural to see, and you're playing versus like, let's say, I don't know, Feral Druid, you're going to get a good lobby because you're going to have double ice block, which is very hard to remove as well. But you have also the crate damage of a frost mage as well, and you have the frostfire build, and you also have the Icelands build, which is still something that can happen. If you're like very good at both builds, you can actually be very much interchanging it depending on the lobbies, and you can then win more games. That's how I feel. Let's talk about Boomy. I think Boomy is right now B tier. I cannot reliably put them. I cannot put them higher than that because I think they are just not that good. They can deal incredible damage, but you're still very squishy. I think people say that they are like tanky, but it's not the case. Not versus the meta. With the BM Hunters, Feral Druids, SPs, then you have also a Resurgence of Warriors. you don't get to breathe. I think it's like the poor man's of Shadow Priest. The only saving grace is actually having Cyclone. If imagine if it had Polymorph, it would be literally unplayable. Or even like Fear, it would be also it would not be like okay for you to survive. So for me, it's going to be a B tier. I think the damage is okay, but that's it. And I don't know if it actually needs a buff. I think it's like a nerf towards the top to get them at A tier. Okay. So let's talk about Outlaw Rogue. I think Outlaw Rogue is currently. I'm going to put them at low B tier, but again, it kind of contradicts with what I said about Arcane Mage. But you see a lot more Outlaw Rogues than Arcane Mage. And I do feel like Arcane Mage, compared to Outlaw Rogue, you have way more niche like streamers, rank 1s or whatever. While Outlaw Rogue, I think if you see the amount of people that are playing it, are like people that are like very tired of the sub rogue like rework that is not doing well for them. But they can do well on Outlaw Rogue because of their like skill and being good at the game. But I think right now Outlaw Rogue is not doing that much damage either, and it is not really meta favorite at all. Sub Rogue, is going to be C tier, and it is the same reason why I put Arcane Mage at C tier as well. Is that people can make it look very strong and they can one shot through cheese, but if you know that the cheese is coming, you are going to see one of the specs that do the least in arenas. If you're not one-shotting, you're doing something wrong on Sub Rogue, and that should not be the thing that is way making you feel like you're not playing the spec well, right? If you're not able to one-shot, it is not like the end of the world. You should be able to come back through like sustained damage, through sustained CC, and like then change your optics on Sub Rogues with how they deal damage. But right now it is not the case. It's still like a one-shot spec, cheese spec, where it's either you win through a very methodical but also very engaging rotation to be able to one-shot through just purely stuns and your damage. But it's kind of hard to do to understand how Sub-Rogue work if you come from anything outside of the War Within. I think if you would be playing Sub-Rogue in Cataclysm, you would understand how Sub-Rogue should be in PvP. But right now it just is not the case, and it's very hard to like have an argument and put them higher than this. Assassination Rogue, on the other hand, I think they are B tier, maybe a bit above Outlaw Rogue. The reason why I put them at B tier is that the meta doesn't play well for you. Like Holy Paladins, BM Hunters, Feral Druids, like they kind of just like eat you, and you have no defensives, like very easy bait to kill. Yes, you can win lobbies just because people are like regrouping too hard and you get like triple dots, triple stuns or whatever. But right now I do feel like it deserves a B tier because of the squishiness, the easiness of to kill and down, but also the damage is stoppable by a lot of specs. Having Demon Hunter is going to be C tier, very close to D tier to be fair. It's not good. A very popular spec, but not being good means that it just doesn't get played. Melees are very flavor of the month, guys. We tend to change spec. I say we, I don't do that, to be fair. But we tend to change specs whenever a spec gets like destroyed or get buffed. Because the melee is a melee, it doesn't matter too much. Obviously it matters, but not as much. And right now, having Demon Hunter has like the least amount of people playing the spec, and also the least amount of representation as well. I think it's like really hovering on the same level as Frost Decay, which is not really a compliment. So I'm going to put them at C tier right now. The one spec that could make people shake in their boots is just not really good. So it kind of makes like an emphasis onto the meta and how it's supposed to be played. Retribution Paladin as the last spec, but not the least. is, in my opinion, also A tier now. I think Templar is making you crit for a lot. I personally critted 2.6 million on Hammer of Light, which is not the biggest I have seen, but it is really reliable. It does a lot of damage with the Imperial Hammers as well. You have very consistent damage as well. And you're one of the specs that have like true immunity with Divine Shield, Bobs. You have a Blessing of Spell Warning as well. You have a lot of stuff that is actually making you win games, but you need to run it and to play with it. Now, is it counterable? Obviously, it is counterable, and it's very frustrating to play versus a Disc Priest or a Preservation Evoker or whatever that can actually dispel the mobs or whatever. So, yeah, I think Retribution Paladin with a big asterisk where they could drop in B tier depending on the lobbies, but right now the lobbies are doing okay for you. So this is the tier list. It has been a very long one, so please do subscribe to the channel if you want to help me. Do watch the video completely, do like the video completely as well. In any case, I think the meta is kind of balanced, but not really. I think the god tiers, which are BM, SP, and Feral Druids, they need to be nerfed to truly see what is balanced in the game. And I think people might be kind of mad about this tier list, but I think I did my best to be objective, to show evidence on the Wallhead Hero Town section. And I talked about the meta-analysis yesterday, so if you want to have another explanation as well, you could also watch that video. In any case, thank you for watching this video. Really appreciate you. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that yet, and we will catch each other probably very soon next video. Have a great day. Bye.